All aboard! Moving out!
Early October 1871. Chicago is still awake before sunrise. Rail yards rattle along the river. Market wagons creak over wooden streets. Dock workers move barrels in low light. The city smells of grain dust, coal smoke, and dry timber. On the west side, narrow rows of wooden houses hold families who sleep through noise. Chicago is loud, crowded, unfinished, and confident. Nights pass, fires happen, the city keeps growing. Inside one small house, boots rest beside a bed. A coat hangs from a wall peg. The air feels warm for October, dry enough to scratch the throat. Nothing feels urgent yet. Outside, the city moves as it always does. Chicago has burned before. Small blazes ring bells, engines roll, and life resumes. Wood is cheap. Speed matters more than caution. Sidewalks, roofs, warehouses, and alleys press close together. Somewhere west of the river, smoke thickens. By morning, nothing familiar will remain. Chicago in October 1871 is restless even on ordinary days. The city never truly sleeps. Rail yards clatter through the night. Stockyards breathe and groan at dawn. Smoke from thousands of chimneys settles low over streets lined with wooden buildings stacked tight against one another. This is a city that grew faster than it learned how to breathe. Morning arrives with a dry wind off the prairie. It pushes dust along the wooden sidewalks and rattles loose shingles overhead. The summer has been long and rainless. Wells have dropped. Barrels stand half empty. The air feels brittle, as if it might crack if pressed too hard. People begin moving early. A clerk steps out of a boarding house near the river, boots striking hollow planks. A shopkeeper lifts a shutter along Lake Street, the hinges groaning in protest. A woman carries water from a pump 2 blocks away, careful not to spill a drop. Every task involves wood. Wood floors, wood walls, wood roofs. Even the streets feel temporary underfoot. Chicago is confident. The city has survived floods, fires, economic crashes. It believes speed equals strength. Buildings rise in weeks, not months. Entire neighborhoods appear almost overnight. No one waits for brick when timber is faster and cheaper. The skyline looks solid from a distance, but up close it is a lattice of dry boards and tarred seams. Along the river, warehouses already hum with activity. Grain sacks are stacked high. Lumber yards crowd the banks, their piles rising like artificial hills. Barges unload timber even as carpenters elsewhere tear down older structures to build new ones. The cycle feels endless. Build, tear down, build again. Fire is always present. Coal stoves burn from dawn to dusk. Ovens glow behind bakery doors. Blacksmiths hammer iron over open flames. Candles flicker in rooms with low ceilings and narrow stairwells. This is normal. Fire has always been part of the city's daily rhythm. That familiarity dulls caution. By mid-morning, the wind strengthens. It slides between buildings and lifts grit into the air. Laundry lines snap, signs creak. Chimney smoke does not rise cleanly, but drifts sideways, pressed flat against neighboring roofs. A man pauses to watch ash tumble from a distant stovepipe, then shrugs and keeps walking. Fire alarms exist, but they rely on human sight and sound. No central system, no instant warning. Someone must see smoke. Someone must run. Someone must shout. By the time help arrives, fire already owns the building. Firefighters drill and patrol, but they are few for a city this size. Their engines depend on horses and pressure that often fails. Hydrants connect to pumping stations that are themselves vulnerable. Everyone knows this, but knowledge does not equal preparation. Near the west side, children play in the street, their shoes scraping dry planks. A woman sweeps her stoop, pushing dust into the gutter. The wood beneath her broom is warm from the sun. It has not rained in weeks. She pauses, wipes her forehead, and looks up at the sky. No clouds, only wind. In saloons, men talk about politics, about money, about railroads expanding west. No one talks about fire unless it has already happened somewhere else. Small blazes occur often enough to be background noise. A shed burns, a barn goes up, the city rebuilds and moves on. By afternoon, the heat settles heavy and unmoving. Doors are left open for air. Curtains hang still. Inside kitchens, cooking fires are watched closely, then watched less closely as routine takes over. Someone leaves a stove unattended to answer a knock. The city does not feel dangerous, it feels busy. Late in the day, a faint smell drifts across several blocks on the west side. It is sharp, but not alarming. Smoke always lingers somewhere. People wrinkle their noses and continue working. A carpenter wipes sweat from his neck and adjusts a plank. A horse snorts and stamps, irritated by ash clinging to its coat. As evening approaches, the wind does not die. It shifts, gusting harder, unpredictable. Loose papers skitter along sidewalks. A sign tears free and crashes to the street. For now, families begin returning home. Shops close. Lamps are lit. Coal fires are fed for supper. On a narrow street west of the river, a man steps out of his doorway and pauses. The air smells sharper now, heavier. Smoke drifts low, pressed down by the wind instead of rising. Further down the block, a door opens hard enough to strike the wall. A woman emerges, pulling a child by the wrist. She does not look back. Her shoes slap against the wooden planks as she moves faster than walking speed. A neighbor calls after her, asking what is wrong. She does not answer. Windows begin to open. Heads lean out. People search the street, not the sky. Someone shouts from a second-story window pointing west. Others follow the gesture. The glow is faint at first, low and broad, barely visible beyond rooftops. It does not flicker. It spreads. The routines of evening start to fracture. Supper fires are left unattended. A man throws on a coat without fastening it. The wind accelerates everything. It pushes smoke into homes, forcing coughing and stinging eyes. It carries embers farther than seems possible, lifting them over blocks and dropping them ahead of the fire's visible edge. Roofs that appear untouched moments before suddenly glow at the seams. Someone runs for the nearest alarm bell. The sound rings out sharp and metallic, then another joins it, then another. Bells echo unevenly across the city, not synchronized, each parish responding to what it thinks is a local emergency. No one yet understands scale. Fire engines move, but slowly. Horses strain against harnesses as wagons bounce over uneven planks. Streets are already clogging with people moving east away from the glow. Firefighters shout for space, for water, for order. The crowd does not listen. Fear outruns authority. At the nearest hydrant, men wrestle with couplings. The hose connects. Someone shouts to open the valve. Water comes out weak, then weaker. Pressure drops. Another hydrant is tried. The same result. The pumping station is too far away, too vulnerable, already under threat. Buckets appear, forming lines from wells and barrels. The effort is earnest, frantic. Water sloshes onto walls that steam on contact. Flames do not slow. They climb, leap, spread laterally along wooden siding and vertically through stairwells that act like chimneys. Buildings begin to fail in ways people are not prepared for. Walls buckle inward, roofs collapse outward, glass bursts into streets already crowded with fleeing bodies. Sparks rain down, catching on clothing, hair, bundles carried too close to the chest. People beat at embers with bare hands, burning skin without noticing. The city's layout works against it. Narrow streets funnel wind like bellows. Houses lean close enough to share fire through open windows. Yards packed with lumber and refuse ignite instantly. There is no clear edge to the danger. The fire does not move in a line. It appears in pockets, ahead of itself, behind itself, wherever the wind carries fuel. Some people hesitate too long. The crowd flows around both her and the trunk without slowing. Police attempt to hold intersections. Their voices vanish under the roar of fire and the crack of collapsing wood. Authority dissolves into suggestion, then into nothing. Survival becomes individual. The fire crosses streets without touching them. Carried overhead, it lands on roofs blocks away, igniting new fronts faster than any response can follow. People fleeing one direction suddenly turn back, trapped between two advancing walls of heat. At the river, the crowd thickens. People press toward water instinctively, even before understanding why. The surface reflects orange and red, the color vibrating with movement. Some wade in immediately, lifting bundles above their heads. Others stop at the bank, staring back at the city as if unable to reconcile what they are seeing. Across Chicago, routines are gone. Shops stand open and abandoned. Meals are left uneaten. Beds are left unmade. The idea of night loses meaning as darkness and firelight merge into one continuous glow. The fire is no longer a thing that might be contained. It is a condition the city must now move inside, and the night is still young. By midnight, the city is no longer fighting the fire. It is moving away from it. Orders still get shouted, but they have lost their authority. Fire chiefs attempt to establish lines, to hold certain blocks, to defend structures considered important. Crowds move east in widening rivers. Streets that once carried carts now carry people shoulder to shoulder. The pace varies block by block. Some sections surge forward, driven by panic. Others slow under the weight of exhaustion, bundles children carried too long. Arguments break out over space, over dropped belongings, over perceived delays. No one intervenes. Everyone is already stretched thin. Animals add to the chaos. Horses break free of tethers and bolt through streets. Eyes wide, hooves striking sparks from planks. Dogs run until they collapse or vanish into smoke. Livestock bawl from yards and sheds. Trapped behind fences no one has time to cut. The wind shifts slightly, just enough to change which neighborhoods feel safe and which suddenly do not. A street that seemed clear fills with smoke in minutes. A block thought lost briefly quiets, only to reignite when embers find new fuel. The fire behaves less like a wall and more like weather, unpredictable and everywhere. At the river, space runs out. Banks fill, boats overload, ferrymen refuse additional passengers, not out of cruelty, but because the waterline is already dangerously low. Some people wade in anyway, clutching children, holding trunks overhead until arms tremble. Others sit on the ground near the water and stop moving altogether. Night deepens, but the city does not darken. Firelight replaces moonlight. Shadows stretch and warp, familiar landmarks vanish as steeples collapse and roof lines disappear. Orientation becomes difficult. People who have lived here all their lives lose their sense of direction, streets erased by flame or blocked by debris. Communication breaks down completely. There is no central command, no reliable information. Rumors spread faster than fire. Someone claims the entire west side is gone. Someone else insists the flames have reached the lake. Both statements feel plausible in the glow. Families separate in the crush. Shouted names disappear into noise. Some reunite hours later by chance. Others never do. Children cling to whoever is closest. Adults make decisions they will replay for the rest of their lives. Chicago is no longer a collection of neighborhoods. It is a single moving mass, pushed east by heat and fear, leaving behind a city that no longer exists in any recognizable form. By the time rain begins to fall, lightly and without conviction, the outcome is already decided. Morning does not arrive cleanly. There is no clear boundary between night and day. Smoke dulls the sky into a pale gray that never quite brightens. People begin to settle into temporary patterns. Camps gain structure. Certain corners become known for bread distribution, others for water. A few areas gain reputations for safety, others for theft. Word travels slowly, carried by conversation rather than print. Newspapers return in limited form, printed outside the city and carried in. Rebuilding begins quietly, not as optimism, but as inevitability. Surveyors move through ruins, marking boundaries where streets once ran. Arguments break out over property lines that no longer exist. Without landmarks, memory becomes evidence. People point, others disagree. The ground offers no clarity. New rules appear. Brick replaces wood. Stone replaces tarred planks. Codes tighten. Fireproofing becomes a promise, though few believe promises easily now. Builders work deliberately, slower than before. Speed is no longer admired, yet not everyone participates. Departure becomes common. Families leave with little ceremony, no speeches, no final looks, just quiet exits. Trains carry them west, south. Anywhere not here, Chicago shrinks before it grows again. Those who stay carry a different posture. Movement is cautious, planning is hesitant, confidence does not return quickly. Conversations circle the same questions. Could it have been stopped? Should something have been done sooner? These questions remain unanswered, suspended without resolution. Children adapt faster than adults. They play in open spaces where buildings once stood. The city's identity shifts subtly. It becomes less naive, less trusting of momentum. People speak of before and after without needing explanation. The fire becomes a reference point, not an event. Months pass. Smoke finally leaves the air. New streets form, new buildings rise heavier and more deliberate. Commerce returns in fragments. Not all businesses reopen, not all relationships survive. What remains is not simply a rebuilt city, but a marked one. Chicago continues, but it carries a memory that does not fade. The understanding that everything familiar can vanish overnight. The awareness that growth without caution carries cost. The quiet knowledge that survival often depends less on preparation than on chance. And those who lived through the fire carry that knowledge forward, embedded in habit, posture, and silence.